Today's class is Learn from the Legends, and because I've always been frustrated by how few examples there are of great women chess players in history, I wanted to bring up Vera Menchik, who was the first woman in history to compete on equal terms with the top men of her day. Now, she didn't win as many games as she lost against the very top guys, but she did win some, and it irritated the men she was playing so much that they started something called the Vera Menchik Club, which was a club that you absolutely didn't want to be a member of. It would mean that you had lost to her. So that kind of gives you a sense of the sexism. Unfortunately, she died way too young, and she didn't get a chance to really show her full potential. She died only in 1944, so she died in World War II actually, in the London Blitz. So pretty sad. And I think she was pretty young at the time, and she had won a bunch of world chess championships. She was in her 30s, yeah. So anyway, we're gonna look at some of her games. Wish there were a lot more, but of course she was succeeded by many great female chess champions, notably Judith Polgar, who recently retired and actually did compete among the best men of her time with great success, even becoming the top 10 players in the world. And now we see that Hao Yifan, who I showed a loss from the other day in my endgame class, but she is also doing excellently and really taking up Judith's role of competing with the top players in the world. So this is a game that Vera Menchik was playing against her main female rival. And in a way, she didn't really have any female rivals because she was a lot better than most of the women at that time. But the closest one was a fascinating woman called Sonja Graf, who I write about a little bit in my first book, Chess Bitch. Sonja Graf, it was this incredible person. I mean, her chess was good, but really, she was a writer. She was a bon vivant. She protested against the Nazis, ended up moving to Buenos Aires, where she was in a chess tournament because World War II broke out at that exact time. So, and if she had gone back to Germany, she would have perhaps been in some trouble. So really a fascinating personality. And in this game, she is playing against Vera Menchik in a Women's World Championship match, and she won this particular game. So one of the few games she got the better of Vera. Black's move, Menchik has just made this move, bishop to a6, which turns out to be an error. Can anybody tell me why?
Neighbor said knight takes knight.
Okay, so I'm starting with knight takes f3, and now they can't take back with the queen because of what?
Because the bishop on h6 is hanging.
Right, so instead they have to take back with a pawn, yes. And after g takes f3, what can black do?
Bishop takes h2.
Exactly, bishop takes h2 check, and then after king takes h2.
Queen d6 check.
Exactly. So this is a very important forcing variation in which now black ends up winning back that bishop on a6 and ends up a pawn, right? So let's take a quick look at that on the demo board for anybody who didn't take a look. Knight takes f3, queen takes f3 just hangs this bishop, right? Whereas if you play pawn takes f3, now bishop takes h2 check, king takes h2, allows this nice double attack, queen to d6, check, and now when the king moves away, we get this bishop here, and the best thing of all is that we've also stripped the king of some defense, right? So this is going to be quite a good position for for black. So that is an example of one tough game there by Vera, but there's a really beautiful game, probably her most famous game that she won against Sonja Graf, which I'm now going to show you. Okay, so we're just going to go over this game from the beginning. So it started out with c4, e6. Yeah, I like that. Knight c3, d5, d4. But it's not really the English anymore, is it? Now it's just transposed.
Gambit.
Exactly. You guys make a good team. Are you related or something? d4, knight f6. And now knight f3, knight bd7. How many many people in this room play like queen pawn openings, like d4 or c4? How many people start the game with 1 e4? Okay. Yeah, that's great. Me too. But it's still fun to look at these openings, and you'd be surprised at the commonalities. You know, they're not as different as you might think. A lot of times you get similar tactics in games, especially in lines where white ends up playing e4 at some moment, and the position opens up, right? Because that's really what characterizes e4 as opposed to d4 and c4. The positions tend to be a lot more open. Do you know what an open position means?
Yes.
What's that mean?
I mean, like a clear board.
Right. So how do you clear a board in chess?
Like capturing pieces and trading.
Not capturing pieces as much. It's more about capturing something very specific. What clears the board for pieces in chess? Yeah?
Using pawns.
Exactly. So open positions are when you trade pawns. When you trade off pawns, that creates open positions. Castles. Castles, what do you think black did?
Castle?
Yes! Got it. All right. And now it's white's turn. What does white do here? I mean, what does white do? What should white do? There's a couple possible moves here for white, but what do you think? What would you guys do as white here? So it doesn't come as naturally to people who don't really play d4, but there's a lot of different plans, yeah?
Maybe b3.
You could play b3 with the idea of bishop b2, sure. You could play bishop d2. What other move do you sometimes want to play in these types of positions? Sometimes white wants to strike forward with what?
E4.
With e4, right. So that's what Vera Menchik did in this game. She did play e4. And then there were a bunch of trades. And now the position has opened up. Pawn,
Okay.
a pair of pawns has been traded. So the position is more open now. And now black played a very typical move in this position, the kind of instinctual move. What do you think black played here? Let me get my water.
First thing I see is knight f6.
Yeah, knight f6 is a really instinctual move for black to play here. And this is going to come up a lot. When you play knight f6, it really helps defend your king, right? So that's a good thing. White played back, bishop c2, strong bishop. Black played c5, trying to get some space. And now after d takes c5, she played queen a5, planning to play rook d8 and recapture that pawn. It's not easy to keep it, right? Because you can't play b4, we can just take it. So white here played bishop e3.
Yeah.
You were guessing that? And now what did black play?
I have a question, if you don't mind me interrupting. Would it be okay to play maybe c6 just to try to give the pawn back immediately and disrupt black's structure a little bit?
You mean instead of playing bishop
Why
e3 here?
c6. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
Take my pawn, or at least take it on my terms instead of being able to, shift it up a bit.
Right. Yeah, no, that seems like a decent idea. I wonder if maybe that bishop can come to a6 at some moment.
So if you do that, does that help him develop his white bishop, though? Help black develop the black-colored bishop?
Black, you mean black?
Yeah.
Well, that's the question. I think he's thinking that it's actually harder now, but the problem is we could probably play c5 anyway and then bishop b7. So I'm not really sure how much it helps you, unless you can quickly come in with knight e5, but right now the queen can capture that, so you'd have to prepare it, right? So seems decent, but nothing particularly special, really.
It's just a pawn pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something you should be looking at. I agree. Because you're going to lose that pawn anyway, so why not consider just pushing it forward? Instead, she played bishop e3, though, and now black played bishop takes c5, recapturing the pawn. And now white played bishop to d2.
Bishop to
attacking the queen.
So, if I might ask, what's the point of bishop to e3 if it just gets captured and you have to move your bishop twice?
Yeah, bishop d2 seems strange, but she actually has a good idea with that move. When she plays bishop to d2 with tempo against the queen on a5, where does she want to go with the bishop next? Yeah?
Maybe C3.
Why do you think c3 might be strong?
Because both of the bishops are aimed down the king side.
Exactly. The bishops are very nicely aimed down the king side, which we're going to see later is very, very important.
Couldn't you have played bishop d2 right away rather than bishop e3?
Yeah, like in this position? Well, I think she was probably thinking that if she played bishop d2 right away, maybe she was thinking that now the queen can take on c5, and then after bishop c3, she has to worry about queen takes c4. That's probably why. But that being said, I mean, these games aren't completely perfect, so I don't think...
Okay, I see.
I'm sure, you know, that's one of the things about studying classic games. The accuracy in them is usually not going to be nearly at the level of the games that we see now in Tata chess steel. So you're going to find a lot more improvements and ideas that could be superior. And that's actually one of the fun things about seeing classic games, that sometimes there's not as much resistance offered in them. So you get to see more brilliant attacks. You know what I mean? The top players today are such great defenders. Part of the reason the top players are such great defenders today is what? Anybody want to tell me why the top players in the world are such fantastic defenders?
Those darn computers.
Exactly. What's that?
Oh, I said those darn computers.
Exactly, because they study with computers. And when you study with computers, computers are so good at defending, you can't help but learn a little bit of their tricks. And generally just have more confidence. Like, you study a position with a computer and you see how miraculously they defend, and then if you're getting attacked, you're like, well, maybe I could do it too. It'd be my lucky day. Whereas I think people used to be a little bit more resigned to defeat. Now people are a bit more resilient. So good question, but you see what I'm saying? Now queen c5, bishop c3, maybe she was worried about that. So instead, bishop takes c5, bishop d2, queen c7, and now bishop c3. Now Sonja moved her bishop back to e7 to guard this knight so that the pawns won't be doubled. And now White has some decent moves here. I mean, what kind of things might you consider in this position as White? There's not like one like obvious move that seems to be better than all other moves, but just what are some different things you might think about?
I would say
Queen to d3. I like the idea. The only thing I don't like about queen d3, like I see that you're just trying to, like what's his tricky idea with queen d3? Yeah?
Defender.
Right, removing the defender. Anybody want to explain how we remove the defender here? Somebody who maybe hasn't tried yet? Removing the defender, what do we do? What do you think? Got any idea what we can, what's an important defender in this position? In the back?
Yeah, bishop takes the knight on f6.
Right, that defends this pawn on h7, so when we take it, queen takes h7. So, if we did play queen to d3, which is an excellent suggestion, I would certainly look at that. I'm always advocating looking for forcing moves. What would black do? Yeah?
Maybe move something like. You play e5.
Well,
Not e5, no, not
e5 we could play bishop takes e5 and then take the knight anyway.
Maybe you could play like, I'll look at g6, but I don't think that's good.
G6 is a possibility, but I think there's a little bit more of an active move you can play. Like G6 is a move that we play because we have to play it. It's not like a move we're excited about playing. But there is a move here that we're excited about playing, and in chess, if you can make a move that you're happy about and also defend at the same time, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah?
The rook to d8.
Yes, rook to d8, exactly. So the thing is, we're kicking this queen off the diagonal, and when that queen moves away, this bishop takes f6 won't have that same threat. Meanwhile, we also develop our rook. So queen d3 is not the best move in my opinion. What other ideas are there?
Rook
Rook c1 is an interesting move. Seems a little bit slower to me.
I just like being tricky, like pick the pawn so I can do tactics.
Right, let's show that. So Rook c1's a little bit of a tricky idea. He's hoping that we'll take this pawn off. Yummy, yummy. And then what will white do?
Bishop takes knight.
Okay, so bishop takes f6, and then after bishop takes f6, what can white do?
Check on H7.
That's right, bishop takes h7, check. Discovered attack on the queen. So, cheapo city here. No, but Rook c1 is a useful move.
Like Queen E2.
Queen e2 seems like a supernatural move to me, and that's actually what Vera Menchik played. But another move that seems really natural to me is knight e5. So yeah, she played queen e2. Kind of just clearing the queen away, because you know that rook d8 might be coming up. Now, Sonja tried to develop her bishop here with b6. Very logical. And Menchik jumped forward with knight g5. Now again, she's threatening all this stuff with bishop f6 and knight to h7. So Graf decided to stop it with the move g6. And now Menchik played queen f3. So she's hitting the rook on a8, as you can see. So bishop to b7. And now white played queen h3. So what's the threat now?
Remove bishop f3.
H7.
No.
Bishop takes knight, g4.
What's that? What do you want to do? Bishop takes what?
Bishop takes knight on.
And then after bishop takes?
F6.
That's right, bishop takes f6. And then after bishop takes f6, there's what? Exactly. So what would black do here?
Right.
That's right. So what should black do?
Black to do.
Black has a couple ways to defend here.
Queen E5.
Black to
Okay.
to H5? No, G4.
I was like e5.
Yeah, I think that, okay, so let's take a look at all these suggestions. We're getting a lot of suggestions here. We got the suggestion h5, we got the suggestion e5, we got the suggestion knight h5. So let's start with knight h5. Does anybody see a good move here for white? Hold your horses, because I think there's a couple good moves here. Because I heard you say you want to play g4, but g4 is actually not that good of a move, because notice that that we don't have to move this knight. We can actually take this knight instead, right? So that might not be the best move. So are there any other really good moves here? No, not yet. Not yet. Let them give them another second. Then this kind of motif is going to come up later in the game, so it's very important.
Oh.
So knight to h5, white has a really nice move. I bet you do. I'll call on you first, I promise. I just want to let a couple more people try to solve it. Your arm's getting tired. Uh-oh. You guys, don't you feel sorry for him? If you don't solve this quickly, his arm's going to fall off. You better get it fast. Oh, no, never mind. He has another arm. He's okay. Who needs two? You want to give them a hint? You should give them a hint.
The queen move.
Okay, it's a queen move, you guys. It's a hint. It is a queen move. It's not just any kind of queen move, though. It's a very special queen move.
No, this is not any kind of queen move.
A very, very special queen move. Anybody see it?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I said you'd say it.
Queen takes the knight from H5.
Very nice. So queen takes h5, a beautiful move. And now after pawn takes h5, what would white do?
Bishop takes H7, checkmate.
Yes! That's exactly right. I hope you're getting his voice in the video. Bishop takes h7 is checkmate. This is a very beautiful checkmate. The bishops are so powerful. That's why chess players love having two bishops, because two bishops just wreak havoc under the board like this.
There's the wall.
The two bishops are the most beautiful thing in chess.
It looks like there's a wall.
So that's why you can't play knight h5. But thank you for demonstrating that beautiful variation with your defensive suggestion. So the other two defensive suggestions are let's have a vote on. So to recap, some people wanted to play e5, which deals with this threat by interfering with the bishop coming to take f6, and some people wanted to just play h5. All right. So how many people in this position would play h5 to deal with the threat? Raise your hand. Got a few people. How many people would actually play e5? All right. Okay. In the game, black played h5. So, but both are reasonable and both seem a bit dangerous for black. So it's kind of like either way, you're going to come under some fire, right? So e5. Now, how would white try to continue his attack here? Her attack. See, I mean, even me. If everything I've done, I get the pronouns wrong sometimes, because there's so many more men who play chess, unfortunately. I mean, it's good that so many men play chess. It's just that we wish there were just as many women and girls who played as well, because then there'd be double as many chess players. Yes? F4 is a pretty interesting idea. It's a little weakening, though. I do like that idea of f4, because I see your immediate plan is that if I take on f4, you can take on f6 and then checkmate me, just like we've been looking at. So yeah, that's a really interesting idea. I would also think about just targeting this pawn right away with rook e1, and it's like a little bit tricky for them to stop you from getting a good position.
Rook fe1.
Maybe rook ae1 so that I can continue. Your name again is?
Wilson.
So I can continue Wilson's idea. If I play rook ae1, and that's an excellent question, by the way, which rook? Because normally you're absolutely right. Like I would lean towards playing rook on f to e1 because this rook might want to go to d1. But in this particular situation, I might lean towards playing rook ae1 so that next move I can play f4, and this rook is still participating in the attack, right? So this looks like it's going to be really strong for white, a very promising attack. Instead, though, Sonja Graf played h5. And now there's a lot of interesting possibilities for white. So tell me what you think. Take a look and tell me what you think you might do. Let's get some suggestions. Yeah, what are you thinking of?
The move that I'm looking at and trying to calculate, I don't think it's best, but looked interesting, was knight takes e6.
Okay, so you're looking at knight takes e6, sure. What anything else people are looking at? Knight takes e6. The thing is, the knight's such a powerful piece, and I feel like after knight f6, pawn f6, queen e6, king h7, it seems like we're hanging on. Like our defenses seem a little bit better.
I was looking at bishop takes on g6.
Bishop takes g6 is a really good try, and there's actually some fascinating variations here. Like, suppose we play bishop takes g6, pawn takes g6, queen takes c6, check. And then say they were to play king g7. I mean, the only other option is king h8.
I was looking at bishop takes g6 after the knight takes.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But let's take a look at this variation too. After king to g7, what move does white have here that gives white perhaps a little bit of a better endgame? Yeah, Wilson?
Queen takes f6.
Yeah, queen takes f6 is a really interesting idea because after bishop takes f6, what do we have? Not a knife,
Knight e6.
but a fork, right? Knight e6 check, and white ends up up just a couple pawns, and black might end up winning one of them back on c4. So it's not entirely clear, but certainly it looks like more promising for white. So. If rook takes, we can also play knight e6 check because of the pin, right? So that seems fine too. That's right, we still get the queen. So that's one possibility, but that isn't what Vera Menchik chose. So I guess, you know, she was looking more for keeping the queens on the board and winning the whole shebang here, rather than simplifying. And that's always an important question when you're attacking, because sometimes you reach a moment where in your attack you can just liquidate a bunch of stuff and get a better endgame. Yes or no?
Wasn't the queen on h3?
Yes. That's why the regular demo board is so brutal, because I always like end up putting a piece in the wrong square. Yeah, question? You had a question?
No.
Okay. So instead she actually just played this move rook a-d1, which is actually extremely tricky and sneaky. Well, especially because of what happened in the game. You know, the normal move here, like when your opponent plays rook d1, you would normally like try to contest the file, even though the rook doesn't seem to have any anchors in on the file. Still, the kind of instinctual response, like the response that you would play in a blitz game, is what? If your opponent plays rook d1, you play what? You play rook d8, right? Just kind of like he says A, I say B, right? But instead, she kind of got tired, I guess, of some of the things going on this side of the board, and decided to try to simplify. And with this move knight g4, what she's doing is she is trying to attack here on g5 and set up some potential simplifying tactics as well, which we're going to see in a second. So this is where it gets really interesting. And Wilson already has an idea, but I'm going to give you guys another minute to kind of look at this position and try to find the best continuation.
Hey, stop.
So what would you do here as white? So Vera Menchik, this is her most famous combination. It's featured in my book, Play Like a Girl. Vera Menchik, she won the women's championship 7 times. The World Women's Championship. She defended her title successfully 6 times. You can only imagine if she didn't die in World War II at such a young age, how many times she would have ended up winning the Women's World Championship. Yeah, she was 38 years old at the time of her death. All right, well, let's get started. Now, first of all, we saw a very similar idea earlier today. Wilson, what would you do?
Queen takes h5.
That's almost right, but it's actually wrong. Why? Because in chess, it's not just about attack, it's also about defense. And, you know, of course she can't take here, because then it would be checkmate in 1, right? Where?
Queen to h8 checkmate.
Very good. Queen h8 checkmate.
Now it's queen to h8 number sign.
Yeah, that's right. Hashtag. Queen h8 hashtag. I like that. So instead of bishop takes g5, though, black has and pawn g5 is no good. Pawn takes h5 is no good either. We saw this earlier, right? What happens now? We're talking about black now. It's black to move. So what can black do here to make things not so happy for white? Yeah? No?
Queen takes h2.
Yeah, queen takes h2. So this is the tricky thing, that when you're attacking, it's easy to miss your opponent's resources. And the problem now is that after queen takes h2, what's the worst thing that can happen when you're attacking your opponent's king and it looks like you're going to checkmate him or her? What's that?
Yeah, checkmated.
That's the worst thing that can happen.
Number sign.
The worst thing that can happen is you get number sign. The second worst thing that can happen is, what's the essence of an attack? Almost every attack involves what piece?
The queen.
Almost every successful attack involves the queen. So when you're attacking and your opponent finds a way to trade queens, that's usually a really bad sign for your attack. So that's usually a really disaster. And the problem here would be after queen h2, knight h2, because this knight is hanging in the end, black restores the material balance, and white's attack is finito, right? So that would be bad. So instead, let's take I know one person already got it, but let's all take another minute and try to see what she did instead. Let's take a little bit longer. So this is also kind of, in a way, this is also a distraction tactic. So we're trying to distract our opponent from the resources that she has. So she set up this defensive resource with queen takes h2 check, simplifying everything. So I think a couple people have already gotten it. And remember, when you're attacking and checkmate is on the offing, material doesn't matter. If you checkmate your opponent and you're down 2 rooks, you still win the game, right? So that's why you have to become immune to your instinctive desire to keep as many of your own pieces and take as many of your opponents. That's what you do when you attack. Any thoughts here? Oh, you know. Okay. All right. So, Wilson, what did you come up with?
I was thinking about rook d7, but I don't think that's correct.
Okay. So, rook d7. Why did you not think it was correct?
Because it can still simplify by queen takes h2.
Well, but it's different now. It's different because our rook is here ready to mop up all these pieces, right? So she can play queen takes h2, queen takes h2, knight takes h2. But now, what piece are you going to take?
The bishop.
Which one, first of all?
The dark square bishop.
Yeah, we take off the dark square bishop now. And now, when they take off our rook, which piece do we take now? Somebody, which piece would you take now? Would you take this rook on b7, or would you take the knight on f1?
The bishop on b7?
Why? If you take the bishop on d7, the knight is trapped, so you end up with 3 pieces for a rook, right? So that's why this queen takes h2 simplifying tactic does not work out so well there, right? So basically, you found the right idea and you gave up on it a little bit too soon, right? So that's an important skill in chess. There's 2 different important skills in attacking chess. One of them is calculating accurately. The other is having the imagination to find the right moves. So you had the imagination to find rook d7, but then you didn't calculate it accurately, right? So it's kind of like you need to really tie both of them in to become the best calculating player, not calculating, the best attacking player, right? Does that make sense? So rook d7 is a brilliant move because now this bishop is in take, the queen must take the rook, and now all of a sudden when we play our key move, queen takes h5, there's no longer any tricks here with queen takes h2, right? And so we're just left with this glorious finish, which you see in many tactics books. Actually, the reason I wrote Play Like a Girl is because there's not a lot of tactics books with positions by female players, but this is kind of the exception. You do see this in most tactics books, even old ones. This is the one position that you kind of see a lot of places, this whole idea of rook d7, followed by queen h5, and again, our beautiful 2 bishop checkmate, bishop h7, and the game is over. So, very good, guys. Nice work, and I want to thank you all for coming. I'll be here for a whole nother week.